beliefs may be influenced by the learning processes. The typical profiles of learning patterns according to Vermont. I just checked the time because I don't want to go over my time. So these are the typical patterns that have been identified in most samples during the long process of identifying patterns and improving the model. The meaning-directed, reproduction, application, and undirected. We have the main processing, cognitive processing strategies, regulation strategies, learning orientations, and the mental models of learning. So in meaning-directed, students have deep processing, they can self-regulate, they get interested in the topics, and their mental models of learning are oriented towards the construction of knowledge. They are responsible for what they learn. Reproduction directed is stepwise processing. They need external regulation. Mainly these students, they want to learn just to pass a test, and they are focused on just taking knowledge or being served the knowledge by the teacher so that they can get a certificate, pass an exam, etc. And that doesn't go beyond that. Application directed is a bit more different because the students want to connect everything with the world around them. So they want to apply in practice everything they learn. And undirected, there is no cognitive processing strategies. They are very unsure and uncertain about what they are learning, how they are learning it. And they need to be attached to other students around them, to other teachers, to kind of guide them. And mainly these students are students who are in transition from one school or from one country to another, from one level of education, from secondary to higher education. So they feel very lost, basically. The learning pattern according to Vermont, which is a concept which combines individual beliefs, motivation, way of regulation, and the relationship between these elements. That's why the aim of any research is to increase learners' capacity for metacognitive control, increasing awareness, and being able to control, to monitor and select learning approaches that work best for these students. So to do all these students would need a really high emotional knowledge. And this brings us to social emotional learning, which is a process. So social emotional, you will hear me say social emotional competence or skills, which are all part of social emotional learning. So social emotional learning is a huge process involving the conquering of all these skills. So critical life skills, recognizing first and then managing emotions, which brings them to strengthening their relationships around them, fostering empathetic behavior, pro-social behavior, and avoiding negative psychosocial development. This is some of the domains that the students would need to perfect in order to be successful in life, not only in their academic lives. So the cognitive domain, which includes setting goals, planning, organizing, transitioning, memory, attention. The social domain, understanding social norms, resolving conflicts, cooperating. And the emotional domain, expressing, identifying, regulating emotions, behavior, and perspective taking. All of these, the core of this is also regulation. So the moment you can regulate all three domains, the student will for sure have a better performance in their academic lives and personal lives. the social emotional learning framework that this study is focusing on, because there are a lot of components that we could have used in the instrument that I used for this study. But the instrument also offers the recommended components that can be investigated. So with every stage, you have optional components that you can investigate, or the ones that are very essential. So I chose the most essential components, and these are grit, which is how well students are able to persevere through setbacks to achieve important and long-term goals, how well they can overcome obstacles and stick to what they want to do in life. Self-management, how well they can manage their emotions, thoughts, behaviors in different situations. Social awareness, how well they consider the perspective of other people, how well they empathize with them. Self-efficacy, how much they believe that they can succeed in achieving academic outcomes, so which is related to the conceptions or learning orientations, more or less. And emotion regulation, how well they regulate their emotions. And the hypothesis of the study is that so far, from what we know, like the last 2 decades, social emotional learning has proven effective with benefits of better academic performance, fewer incidents, greater awareness, and understanding for students how to handle their emotions, which could potentially shape undirected learning into meaning-directed and could improve academic performance. And the second hypothesis is that culture plays a significant role on social emotional learning competencies and learning patterns, and students whose learning is meaning-directed will show better social emotional skills. The sample is participants from Kosovo, which were high school students, 2 different schools, 2 different high schools, the technical high school Pietre Bogdani and Centra Competențe in Ferizaj, Kosovo. Participants in Albania were students attending Wilson High School in Tirana, Albania, and in Macedonia, Drita High School in Kičevo, North Macedonia. 56% were females, 44 were males, 15 to 18 years old. This is the age that they are enrolled in secondary education in all 3 countries. The instruments used is for learning patterns, the modified, translated short version of the inventory of learning patterns, which is the reduced version consisting of 60 items. And for social emotional learning, it was used Panorama Social Emotional Learning measures, which were created by Hunter Gelbach, Associate Professor at Kevitz Graduate School of Education. The design of the study is cross-cultural. Findings were obtained through surveys. So for both of them, the Likert type scale. And the analyses were conducted through variable analysis with reliability measures, Pearson, correlations, and factorial analysis. Results. So for research question number 1, this is the means and standard deviations of the ILS scales for all countries, because finally we decided to treat the sample of all 3 countries as one, given the fact that the system of education is very similar and the difference was very trivial between the countries. And these are the dominant patterns that were identified through factor analysis on the Balkan sample. So meaning-directed external, passive, motivational, and reproduction-directed and undirected. All 3 typical patterns based on Vermont, except for application and directed, which was not identified. And this is more typical for the Dutch investigations, but not Latin American countries or Asian countries. So the Balkan sample showed some similarities with Latin American countries and Asian countries, maybe their mindset, maybe the system of education, which is more teacher-centered. For research question 2, how is social emotional learning defined in these countries? Through the KMO and Bartlett test, we only got one factor of social and emotional learning. So a unidimensional factor. The relationship between learning patterns and social emotional learning through correlations. We got a really good relationship with social emotional learning and meaning directed external, but we also got the relationship between passive motivational, which was not expected, and it's a bit strange, difficult to explain maybe. There was, as expected, no relation with reproduction directed and undirected. And then there were some analyses conducted, comparisons with other samples. So this is an analysis with Balkan countries and Ibero-American countries, which look pretty similar, except for ambivalent and external regulation of processes. We also had like a very low reliability scale on certificate-oriented and personally interested, which was which also happened with Sri Lankan students. Personally interested was very low, and certificate-oriented with Latin America. But in the Balkan case, we got both of these. And the difference between the sample of Balkan countries with the Netherlands, you can see that there is more differences with these countries, which shows maybe the curriculum, the system of education is very different, or the intrinsic motivations of Balkan students are different from the Netherlands or other European countries for that matter. The discussion part, conclusions regarding question 1, research question 1, which learning patterns are dominant. As we said, meaning directed external with external regulation was identified. Passive motivational, which is similar to passive idealistic, which includes all the learning conceptions, and reproduction directed and undirected. So application directed was not found, which shows, as I said, similarity with Latin American countries. Regarding social emotional learning, it's a unidimensional construct, which needs to be investigated more, because social emotional learning is not included in the curriculum in the Balkan countries. There are reforms, and they are trying to modify these old curriculums, now mainly in Albania, but they still need to work on this more. So I'm hoping my study would be like a starting point. So social and emotional subscales were put through factorial analysis, and only one factor emerged. Results showed a slight difference among the 3 Balkan countries, where students of Albania scored higher in social emotional competencies than those of North Macedonia and Kosovo. Research question 3, what is the relationship between learning patterns and social emotional learning? there is a significant relationship between social emotional learning and meaning directed external, as we saw on table 7, but also with passive motivational, which I would appreciate your comments or feedback or suggestions that you have for this question. And what is the contribution of this study to Vermont's model? It's offering a new sample from a region that has not been investigated before. It goes beyond higher education, so it kind of tries to tackle the problem before people go to university and then drop out. So maybe if we regulate the students or change their undirected ways of learning before, they could potentially be more successful in their future endeavors. And it's analyzed simultaneously with social emotional learning, which has not been examined or investigated before. And that is the end.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I would like to thank you also for the ¿cómo decir? For la because you were very quick and very clear. So we'll have plenty of time to discuss, ask, maybe give you some suggestions.
Yeah, I promised you I would be quick. You told me 40 minutes, please, no more.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, so any question, raise your hand and I will let you speak. Or I have something to say, but I would wait for someone else.
Okay. Well, I only can see the speaker, I think, so maybe.
Oh, yeah, you can.
Maybe I stop sharing? Or?
Yeah, you can stop sharing, yeah, so we can see each other.
Okay.
Anyone? Okay, so I'll go first. Ah, Carla. Okay. Me cachis.
Hi. Thank you, Sonia, for your presentation. I just was wondering, I know that you applied your study to 2 different countries or contexts. Have you explored if there are some differences among them, or just run the analysis as a whole?
No, I have separate analysis, so I have all of them. I didn't want to include everything here because finally I decided to treat it as a whole. Like we decided because the differences were very trivial among the countries. And based on Hofstede's cultural dimensions, he also treated this area, like former Yugoslavia, as basically, because he didn't find many differences in the culture or the system of education is basically the same. I've been teaching both in North Macedonia and Kosovo, so I know both curriculums. And yes, I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Okay, I would like to, well, I have just 2 comments. The first one, I was surprised to see that it seems to be one of the main difference between your results and Netherlands results was self-test, very much higher in your case, and self-regulation. So it was very interesting for me to see that both of these were really high, that we can think of some relationship, but normally they go into different factors and they conceptualize into different constructs.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting for me, and maybe you have some explanations from your cultural point of view or contextual point of view. I don't know. Mainly the self-test thing. I think it's.
I think I was conflicted with passive motivational and meaning directed external. Like the students showed that some of them were meaning directed, but they need external regulation. And then they have motivation, but is passive. It's like they're not doing anything about it.
Yeah.
Maybe they have more like the knowledge of what to do, but they don't apply it. That was clear. And some of them showed some self-tests and application-directed aspects in their learning, but not enough, apparently. So I don't know if it has to do with culture or outliers, or I don't know.
Okay. Okay, because I suppose I don't remember your factorial analysis. The self-test went, I suppose, into the external MD factor, right?
Wait, I can check.
I'm just curious.
Or probably in RDUD.
But it's very high, so I thought, well, I don't know.
It's self-test and vocation-oriented. It's really high. But so is ambivalent, which is 0.96 ambivalent, and then vocation-oriented 0.80, and self-test is 1.2, which is pretty high.
But in which factor does it load?
RDUD.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Maybe I don't know if you did that, but it would be maybe interesting to see cluster analysis, so to see actually how these patterns interact among them within the people.
Yes. Actually, yes. I've conducted a lot of clusters and all of that, which is in a separate document, and I'm working on it for my longer thesis. But for the sake of the presentation and time, I didn't want to include every detail.
I understand. But because also I was thinking your result about passive motivation, it would be maybe useful to see that in order to interpret the relationship between passive motivational and your social emotional learning. Because I was thinking, I don't know if you have a profile of people who just have high passive motivational pattern, or if it's just a mental construct, a construct that people have in combination with another pattern. That would be maybe helpful to interpret your results.
That's a really good suggestion, actually.
Antonio.
Activa
el micro.
Hello, Shqiponje.
Hi.
Congratulations for your speech and your work. I like that you do the first seminar before than me, because this is a training for us.
Yeah.
For the next speech. So, and I have some questions for you. At the moment, only 2 questions, because I think that is a question that the court can ask us. Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
So one of them is very simple. That is, why did you choose these countries?
Why did I choose these countries? It's what I know. It's what I recognize. When I started teaching, first I left university. I went to my city, and I taught as an educator. I taught in the same school that I left 10 years ago. So the same school where I studied, the reality I faced was the same. The curriculum was the same, but students were dealing with TikTok, with Instagram, with social things that I didn't deal with, but they were kind of receiving the same cure for everything, which for me was not working, because the success, the academic performance was worse, dropouts higher, and all of that. I think it's the motivation that any researcher in the educational field has to improve well-being, which surpasses the passing exams, like memorizing things to get a certificate. I think that that's the main goal of what we're doing, if we look at the bigger picture. So for me, that was what pushed me into conducting more research. Like, I know it might not make the biggest contribution because it's a small sample, it's a few countries, but at least it offers a flavor of this region.
Okay, thanks. And the other question that I have is, you have showed the new things that you offer to the research questions about learning patterns. But I think that is possible. The court ask about what new lines of research you can follow with your study.
What lines of research I can follow?
Yeah, the new lines of research.
I think applying social emotional programs and conducting longitudinal studies about following a group of students throughout their secondary years and throughout university, like after they have been exposed to social emotional training. Like, for example, I don't know, picking a sample that maybe they are not doing very well in school, and like applying an intensive program of enhancing their skills, their social skills, their managing, self-regulating, like the cognitive domains, and then following their progress throughout university to see if there is a difference after they were exposed to this kind of training. So that could be one line to follow.
Yes, I think that it would be interesting to include these things in your speech.
Yeah.
In the last part.
I think it's like, we know what's wrong. We know that undirected students are undirected for this and for this reason. We know that if a person goes from one school after he was learning in Netherlands and comes to Spain because their parents moved and they face all these new problems, we know, we kind of know how to help them, but it's difficult to do that if we don't recognize it. We don't say, okay, this person is going through an undirected phase that we need to help them. Like, we need to apply some methods to change.
And the last thing is only for information. You have got the same results than me in my thesis.
Really?
Really? Yes.
Well,
I have never commented before, but we have found the same patterns.
Because I think academic stress comes from not being able to regulate your emotions, which is something not only connected, it's super connected. Because if I'm feeling stressed right now for presenting, which I am, everyone can notice, is because I'm not able to self-regulate. Reynaldo suggests that I'm undirected, passive motivational, passive idealistic. This is the pattern that he says for me. So all this academic stress is connected to my social emotional deficits that I don't have.
Yes, thanks.
But Antonio, did you mean your same results in the factor structure or in the relationship between your stress variables?
No, the factors.
So it's also interesting to know
we
that.
have found the same learning patterns. Passive, idealista, the same learning patterns. We have a different analyzing, no? Because I have a clusters and I have another thing, no? But one of them that the general analyze it's the same factor.
Mm-hmm.
So when Shqiponje say my sample is more related, is more similar than the Latin America's studies, I agree, absolutely agree with that.
Yeah.
The mindset and the system of education, I think it's similar. In these countries, it's a bit more teacher-centered, with a touch of student-centered lately, maybe in the last 5 years, because there are new teachers. They learn more about the importance of leaving students to be more independent and have a say in their learning. But generally, it's traditional, like, if you compare it to other European countries.
Mm-hmm. Laura, can I just say first, can you please fill the form? You have the link in the chat, so everyone, so we have we know who is attending to our seminars, and because I know we are multitasking, so we can listen and do that at the same time. Thank you, and Laura.
Thank you. Hello, Shqiponje. I was thinking about that, no? Why this similarity to Latin America and not to European? That is very curious, but you just say why. And the other, you show an structure for 3 factors. Yeah. And the model, Vermont model, is 4. Why do you think it could be?
I think because maybe the model has not been used in this region before. It is not modified or adjusted specifically according to the culture, or I think maybe when it was taken as a model and they went to apply it with Asian students, or maybe they took into consideration more things. I took the model, the modified version, translated it in Albanian for the Albanian students, and applied it like that. So maybe it needs some modification finally to, I don't know, change some things based on each culture. Because if you take one model and apply it all over the world, you cannot have the same results everywhere. I don't know.
No, it's true that it needs a revision, a review, perhaps. But it's curious because in a lot of studies, when the researcher find 4 patterns, but in a different mix of components or subscales. But in this case, well, you say no, application directed is not appear.
No.
But I don't know the passive idealistic either. So it's curious. It's curious to reduce to 3 patterns. Perhaps is the way, I don't know. Because the most important, that is a meaning directed, this clear, and a reproductive and undirected together, no?
Yeah.
It's to take in account.
The patterns that were dominant were very, very combined. Like I also think that it could be that students are not really, I think schools have become so exam oriented. When they finish school, like when they finish high school, they have to take exams for like 1 month. Different, they are called like state exams in order to go to university. So I think their last 2 years in high school, they are exam oriented like robots. And they don't really think, how am I going to apply this knowledge? What am I doing with this subject? They just want to pass, I don't know, make their parents proud and enter university. And then from there on, you have all the failures, the dropouts, because they don't know what they're doing. So I think this is the problem we need to tackle as educational researchers and in the psychological domain.
Thank you very much.
The other Laura, wanted to ask something or say something? Go ahead.
Hey, yeah. Please don't mind if I am asking you something that you've already talked about, because I had to pick up a phone during your presentation. But what I'd like to ask is if your research implies mindfulness meditation as a resource to improve self-knowledge and self-regulation.
Actually, that's an amazing idea. If we could include it in it is included in the social emotional learning dimension, because it's something that helps students to regulate their emotions, to manage their feelings, to thrive as adults later in life, not only pass an exam in school. So that, I think that would be, like I said, if we could create a social emotional program to improve the life, the well-being of these students, one of them would be mindfulness and meditation.
Thank you.
I think it's my turn again. I would like just a brief comment about the 3 factors thing. So lately we have more and more research that obtained only 3 factors and not the 4. In Brazil with Reinaldo and Jordi, we had 3 factors too. In China, they got 3 factors, and actually Vermont in 2003 he got 3 factors too. So I think it's less common, but it's not so unusual in the big picture. I have this big picture because I'm doing part of my PhD on this issue, so it's not so uncommon.
So in Brazil, what kind of factors were?
So we had passive idealistic. We had, ya me vi Ronaldo, ¿me puedes ayudar? Porque igual me lío entre estudiantes y docentes. We had reproduction. We had application oriented. Was very important for us because they were doctors, health professional, teachers and students. So they had a big component of application. And RD, MD jointly, something like that. Okay. Reinaldo, me corrige.
MDAD, pasivo idealista y RDUD.
Yeah, en estudiantes, sí.
I think it could be all the changes, the rapid changes that are happening in our field. It could affect learning. Like, it's not as crystal clear as it used to be. Like, okay, meaning directed, undirected. I think now students have more access to things, more access to different learnings outside of school. So maybe they have more income to access different types of patterns.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. And also, it's maybe you can have a look at that, because in China, I suppose you know the study. It's a very new one from 2021. I think it's published, and they had a sample of secondary education, and they got 3 factors: MD external, so your factor, undirected, and passive idealistic, passive motivational. So it's nearly your structure.
Yeah.
And it's also secondary education.
That's really interesting. Because China was more like reproduction directed, and like the previous research that I saw a study, they found more like they kind of would represented China as reproduction oriented and directed. What year was the study?
I think it's 2021. Let me check.
No, like.
Oh no. Yeah, 19. Actually, is it published, Reinaldo? No sé si
Sí, está
se publicó ya.
Studies in Higher Education 2021.
2000, okay. Well, for sure I haven't seen it.
And about the alphas, I would like to ask you, is it possible that this is a very interesting question for me because I included your study in my meta-analysis, so I need this answer. So is your low reliability coefficient, do you think it is possible that it's so low because you applied in some factors, in just Albanian language? Maybe there are people who are more fluent in other languages. Have you checked?
I actually put in the questionnaires, I put what is your language that you speak at home? Like what's your native language? So the questionnaires that I got a different language, I discarded them. Like I dismissed. I didn't include in the study because I thought it could be affecting, like that they didn't understand the question, or so it was one of the questions. What is your native language? What language you speak with your parents and friends?
Okay, so it's Albanian for all your sample.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And Reinaldo?
Hello.
Hi.
Congratulations, Shqiponje. You have a relevant step. Move on to your PhD. More surely, more clear. But still, you need to improve a little more in this month. I think that it's very interesting that you have three types of pattern. Two of them connected with social emotional learning. No? Some people or some students meaning directed with social emotional learning. I think that it is clear and probably is oriented to the actions, my greed, my emotion, my self-management with my meaning directed pattern. Another type of students is more rarely is passive motivational with social emotional learning, which you can explain it. No, what is your explanation and your suggestions for these students with passive motivational learning pattern and social emotional learning? In this sense, I think in students with good greed, good emotional regulation, good self-management, but a set of learning orientations without connection with the strategies. What is your explanation for that?
I'm still working on the explanation, but I'm assuming these students are motivated. They have the inner motivation to do well in school, in life. They have good intentions, but maybe they need the more regulation or external regulation, or to be motivated in another way. I don't know. I'm still reading about it, like to try and explain how it could be that a passive student has a very good social emotional competence.
But probably meaning directed a student with external regulation have more clear to move on to metacognitive control. But these students with passive motivation, what is your opinion, your suggestion to improve or to foster their metacognitive control?
Um,
in the middle of this secondary to the transition to higher education, for example?
I don't know.
No? Okay. I think that probably the challenge is to move this grit and social awareness, for example, oriented to the social emotional learning, or oriented to the social abilities. So toward my learning strategies, no. For example, I think that is como in outside to inside me, no.
Yeah.
Starting from the social awareness, the social need, the social interaction, to foster my own awareness, my own metacognitive control.
Yeah.
No? Or my business.
Yeah. Yeah, I think grit is very important to gain the metacognitive control, because it shows how patient the student is, and how well they can just stick to one thing until they achieve it.
But not only grit to social emotional learning, also to learning strategies.
Yeah.
Okay, another comment, question for you. You found more differences with Netherlands, more similarities to Asian and Latin American, and Antonio says that your result is similar to Antonio in Latin America, and Anna say that it's similar to Brazilian. Probably the problem is Vermont. The problem is the North European vision or way about learning strategy. And so, what is your sentences, your trying it to Vermont in a more inclusive learning theory?
To change the inventory of learning styles, maybe time to modify it a little bit, to adapt it.
Okay, but I think that you need to think more about it, no? Particularly in order to answer your theory, your 4 question.
Yeah.
It's going. You need to create imaginary conversation with Jan Vermont and say, "Hello, Juanito."
I actually dreamt of him last night.
Yeah,
I was so
sí. Okay.
He came to my apartment with a camera for my presentation, and my apartment was full of people, so I couldn't speak. He couldn't hear me. It was a nightmare.
Okay, you need to create the little apart conversation with Jane Vermont, with Juanito in Spanish. Conversation with Juanito. Juanito, hello. Take a beer, because Juanito likes beer a lot of, and say him, you need to improve your inventory in this sense: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, blah, blah. For this reason, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You need to write about it.
Yes.
Okay, I wait. Thank you.
Thank you for your suggestions. I don't know if there's any.
Or maybe you can, you can speak with Vermont, having a beer, or you can create your own inventory for Balkan students, and different contexts, educational contexts.
Yeah, but the question is that we need from the international view, we need a learning theory, a learning processing framework, and methodology instrument more inclusive from international view. It's not possible that we found and we say that okay, Asian is different, Latin American is different, Balkan is different. Sorry, probably the difference is the North of European students, and the rest of the world is more similar.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm just saying that it doesn't have to be always Vermont's model. I mean, we collectively, we can create another inclusive model. No, it doesn't have to be Vermont's.
Yeah, I agree, actually.
Yeah, but the problem is that the research in this area is conducted from Belgium,
from the Netherlands,
UK, etc. We need also to write and to publish more these results, these voices, in order to discuss, to revise, the theoretical frameworks about learning. More in this international interconnected world for learning and teaching.
I think we have more of a chance modifying, adjusting it slightly, because it's already very established as a model. It's been years and years, and it has been used a lot. So our model would be very new and very skeptical in applying it until it becomes like established as a model.
Yeah, for example, in your case, a student with passive motivational learning parent and social emotional learning probably is no worse, is not bad. It's a way of learning, it's a way of life, but we need to support, to accompany this type of students to get their motivational and their social awareness, put it inside me to foster other ways of life, other way of learning, in this case of students. Okay. I don't know. Another question, comments, suggestion, reflections?
I think I saw Antonio at one moment. He turned the micro on, but he was maybe shy to raise his hand.
Because I want to say that not all the resources the same, no? Because we know that in South Europe and Latin America, the results is very similar. But in the south of Asia, we have the study from Ahmedi, no? That the results is very different. But I don't know what happened with this new study, no? The study that Anna give the link, because I don't know. Anna said that this study found similar factors than Shqiponje and than me. So I think that we have a clear conclusions about that. So the way that the students learn is not don't use the different strategies that Vermont or us can think. Vermont or us can think. And another thing that I think is very important is that the passive idealist, the factor of passive idealistic, that was a pattern or a factor that different research found, but like how can I say it? The sporadic way, no? there are a few research that found this learning pattern. We can check it in the thesis from Laura. There are a very good framework about the learning patterns, and there we can compare the results. And if we check it, we can see that there are, I don't know, a few research that found the passive idealistic. But nowadays, Shqiponje found the same factor. I have found the same factor. So I think that this is a new way to learn, or this is a very famous or very common way to learn in the South Europa and in Latin America. Because I don't know if Laura found the passive idealistic in his study, but I think that she found it.
Yes, but it's because before, I think there's a common use of the name, because before Donche named that kind of pattern like flexible. Rocha in Portugal have another name, and someone in Latin
Flexible.
America, yes, yes, because it was not clear. So I think that with the time, with the years, there's a more common name, because Vermont found that this passive, idealistic or motivated in secondary school. And most of the study was in university. The undergraduate, it's supposed to not show or not characterized by this kind of pattern. I think that is the difference. The more use of the name and the sample.
I want to tell you that for everybody in advance that this passive idealistic, right, is one of the learning patterns that is going to drop out in the university. But this explanation of this topic, it will be in the next seminar. So.
So don't spoiler your session.
That is one of the conclusion of one of the information that you can get in the next seminar. So wait for it.
Don't promote your seminar on my seminar.
Exactly. So can I just say in this, we're talking about these changes, right? That we are seeing. We don't know still if it's cultural or it's years pass by and things change and people change. So I'm not promoting my seminar. I don't know if I talk about that, but so I'm studying the reliability of the subscales, and we found that there are a lot of scales that are less and less reliable with the years. I mean, old studies were more reliable than new studies. And for example, deep processing, personally interested, the self-test oriented, all of these scales are going worse with the years. That's another things that maybe we can think about, because we're more focused on the factor structure. But maybe if the subscales on their own, maybe there are more things going on in the same subscale, because if they're not reliable, one reason could be that it's too complex to be just one scale. So maybe we're speaking about different things in the subscales.
Sorry, parenthesis. Yeah. When I finish this seminar, this presentation, I will send this record to Vermont in order to listen his comments.
Okay.
Hello,
hey, John Vermont.
I waiting we waiting your comments as soon as possible and your suggestion for improve. Thank you. Okay, no, Vermont is not here now.
I remember in a conversation. Yes. Yeah, I remember in a conversation with Vermont, the only one that I have, that I had. Vermont asked me, what is the situation in the Spanish universities? Why I think that we can find this kind of factors. I remember in German when we went to the Congress, no? And Shqiponje was there, no? And now I'm going to ask you the same question, Shqiponje. Why do you think that you find these factors in your study, no? Because sometimes this is a question that this is a topic that we found, but we don't think about it. I remember that when I asked Vermont, I said that I think in Spain, the students access to the university with superficial strategies, and the university sometimes, or the teachers in the university sometimes have to adapt the way to teach for these students, and this adaptation promote that these students don't change the process, his learning process. What do you think, Shqiponje, that we can change the learning patterns in a secondary school, or why do you think you found this pattern? For example, the undirected pattern and reproduction pattern together.
I don't know if I don't know why, but it is how it is. Maybe it's a long process of the same system of education that has persevered during the years in my country, in the other countries around the Balkans. But my hope is that we can change these undirected, reproduction directed, all these patterns that kind of help the student fail in the future. Because if these students go to university, what if the university does not adapt, like you said, does not adapt to their strategies, to their undirected strategies? Then they would drop out. They don't have a chance. But if they go already kind of prepared, at least with a different point of view about learning, even if we can change one scale, one subscale of something, of deep processing, I think you're making a change, at least. Instead of him going as totally undirected, maybe it can go as undirected, motivational, or a mix of a pattern which has proven to be successful. So, I don't know.
Do you think that the secondary school should be more demanding or do more requirements to these students?
Not more demanding. I think it should be less demanding of them to pass exams, because then that's what they will focus on. If I'm asking you have to pass this exam in order to enter university. Here they have, now my students that I teach in Barcelona have selectividad, I don't know what, and they spend weeks and months preparing for this, and they pay no attention to anything else. So their social emotional skills are on hold. They are not spending time regulating themselves in any way. They just want to reproduce and memorize things so that they can pass. So I don't know.
Yes, in fact, they passed 2 years preparing the exam, because the bachillerato, that is called, there's 2 years with one objective, that is the selectividad.
Yes, I have my students right now. Some of my students are preparing for this. They come to class very distracted, and they basically don't care about anything else concerning them. I'm talking about the students who want to go to university. But then they will go to university, and as you said, Antonio, maybe they don't have the correct strategies to make it there. So they meet failure, they meet disappointment, and
or maybe they have the strategies that the system, the educational system, teach to them, before than the exam. No? I say that because I have found a curious thing that is in my research. There are some countries from Latin America, and the people who want to access to the university have to pass the exam, like a selectividad in Spain. And after them, some countries give you another course to adapt your your learning process to the university. And I think, wow, it's very curious that a person who has been studying for years in the system, in a different system, in a system from Peru or in other countries, after get the access to the university, after pass the exam, have to course another training to adapt your way to learn to the university. No, I think that this is
You think it's a good thing, or like you think this is a good thing for?
No, I think it's a bad thing. This is the result that a system who don't teach correctly or properly. No? In fact, Vermont say that we confund the learning with the performance, because the performance is the results of the exam. No? And one guy can pass the exam with memorization strategies, no? And the learning is not the performance. No?
Learning never happened, basically.
Yeah, but take into account that the university at the moment is focused in the exams, no, the results, no. For that reason, I think that when we study the learning patterns, in your case, it's not in your case, because you don't you don't look for the relation between the learning pattern, but with the performance. But in that case, we have to take into account that the performance is not the learning that the people get. No?
Yeah, that's true.
Any more questions, suggestions, commentaries? Rinaldo's moving very fast.
Sorry. I am here. I am listening, but I am in the order of Anna, multitask people, multitask men. But I am here.
Can I use just 1 second to say, please, can you fill the form?
Yes. I think
okay, thank you. Now that Ronaldo said the multitasking thing.
Okay. That's it. Okay, done.
Thank you.
So if you have any other suggestions, they're all very welcome.
What? Salud.
I have a question, no? Because Shqiponje and me, we are in the same process, and in a few time we are going to present to hand in and present the thesis. And here there are some people who are a doctor, no, who got the certificate, and I would like to ask them if they want to give us or to offer us suggestions or some explanations or some comments, no, about the thesis, no, this final process and the speech when we are going to present.
Yeah, actually, that would be very much appreciated.
In a one sentence, ponte las pilas, papito. Ponte las pilas, mamita.
The
Is the best orientation
no,
or suggestion for you, Shqiponje?
I'm not directed pattern, Reynaldo, so
I think that is clear that the results is very important, but this part of the new perspectives, the future in the research in this area from the cultural dimension, or what is our task or our commitment in order to improve the learning and the life of the students in the first year of the university or in the final years of the secondary education. No, I think that this comment is the more relevant point in your final dissertation. No, for example, no, good your data from Latin America or the data from the Shqiponje for Balkan countries, but in a similar way or different to European. But okay, now, no, the next step. What is the next step? No, for learning and teaching. Yeah.
I would add that question that Antonio made, that you just need to keep in your mind that this will be the next month. This is your primary task, and you're gonna dream about it, and you're gonna have nightmares about it. And after you submit it, you are gonna keep thinking about it. So it's just the final process. You need to keep up. You need to think that it's everyone that will have a PhD went through it. It is hard, but it will pay off. And about oral presentation, I think we could do kind of a seminar or something like that, or an informal talk with all of us and to discuss that and pros and cons and how to approach it. So I think it's another kind of seminar. We take more minutes on this.
Listen, Dr. Quesada Pallares, because probably, surely, she have in the committee of one of you. No. One of you or both, I don't know.
Carla, you know that I appreciate a lot you.
Okay.
Shall we say goodbye and see next month? We have the pleasure of having Antonio Vega Martinez's presentation, as we all know now.
Okay.
I would like
the time will be afternoon time. I think 6:30. No, or 6:30. From 6:30 to 8 o'clock.
It can't be this time. Like there's no way, because I always work from 5 to 9.
Yeah, well, we changed it. We tried to change it to accommodate all the people or Pafiu people in South America. Okay. So we had some of the sessions at noon and some of the sessions afternoon.
Yes, and we have to take into account that in my thesis there are some countries who take part in my thesis from Latin America, and we are going to send the link for them. So I think that is very important that the time will be at 6:30. So for that reason we can change the schedule.
Yeah.
I would like to ask something. Just I think the next seminar is on the 22nd of June. Is that
22nd, right? Yes.
Yeah. So it's probably Elena's thesis defense in the morning. So I will keep you posted in case you want to be online present, because it will be blended shortly. And then I would like to use these 2 minutes to present Colin K, who is a PhD student already accepted the program, and he will join us next year, and he will use the learning patterns also in his thesis. So just he arrived later.
Yes, perfect for me. No problem.
Thank you. Sorry, Colin, we didn't say hi because you arrived. We didn't check the list.
No problem. I'm here now.
Hi.
Thank you for an excellent presentation.
Okay, so see you next month. Thank you,
Okay.
Shqiponje, for the excellent presentation, for sharing your work, and we hope you could get some insight, something useful for your dissertation.
Of course. Thank you for your suggestions and for finding the time to be here. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hello. Bye. Thank you.